Hi there, Coach Sage of SageRunning.com here with a training talk on marathon race day nutrition strategy. Seen various videos pop up online nowadays with people offering very general kind of common sense advice. Kind of found it not to be maybe super helpful, so I want to lay out the specifics and get into the numbers and give you a lot of stuff that Sandy and I've learned as coaches, coaching countless Boston qualifying marathon performances, sub 3 hour marathoners, as well as in our own extensive experience in distance running, just coaching and being athletes that run marathons and ultra marathons. So let's get started. All right, so first, there are a couple factors at play with your marathon race, where it is, what the weather's going to be like on race day. Try to research it. Is it going to be hot and humid? Is it going to be cooler? This is going to change your fluid intake, or I should say your electrolyte intake, your hydration, the importance of hydration. Because obviously if it's hot and humid, you're going to have to drink more, probably get more electrolytes in versus if it's cold, but you should still drink even if it's a cold race. Now, you also need to be taking in some sort of fuel, carbohydrate source usually, or you're going to bonk. You're going to bonk probably after mile 20 or 32 kilometers into the race, if you're running to your full potential and you don't want to slow down, because most people will drastically slow down in the last 6.2 miles or the last 10K of their marathon, because of bonking, because of glycogen depletion, but also running out of fuel, basically. Dehydration, they're also getting dehydrated. But final thing is also muscle cramps, muscle fatigue, shear muscle failure, which is usually also caused by a lack of training, lack of pace strategy. And I'll link to my marathon pace strategy, first-time marathoners, beginner marathoners, advice video at the end of this video. I've covered a lot of these topics before. Been doing YouTube videos on this type of stuff for over 6 years now. So I'll link to that at the end as well as in the description below. All right, so hydration, we're looking at the weather of the race. We're looking at, training for that, keeping that in mind. We're also looking at individual differences. If you weigh more, if you're a bigger person, you're probably going to have to need a little bit more than if you're a tiny person. There is individual differences in sweat rate, how you lose sodium, electrolytes, and how much you could eat or how much you have to take in, depending on how fast you're burning through your carbohydrate stores versus how much you're utilizing fat as a fuel. But all those differences aside, generally for most people to run their best marathon and to not bonk or slow down from dehydration, you're going to be wanting to take in your calories and fluid on a relatively good schedule. You have to be flexible with the schedule, but hydration needs start days before the race. Before you even travel to the race, make sure you're drinking plenty of water and staying hydrated, because this is going to get your blood volume up. You don't want to have low blood volume going into the marathon, so you got to be hydrated days in advance. Now, that doesn't mean you want to drink a ton of just plain water. If you just drink gallons and gallons of water, or liters and liters of water, you're going to get hyponatremia, which is probably more of a concern, more of a deadly thing for first-time marathoners than actual dehydration. So that's when you dilute the sodium content essentially in your blood to a dangerous level. And that's if you just drink plain water all the time. Now, you mix in eating some salty food and some fruit juice or fruit, things like that, as well as some sort of sports drink or a drink mix that has some electrolytes in it, sodium, potassium, magnesium, that won't happen. But, you don't go crazy with the fluid intake. Just make sure you're not thirsty all the time and dehydrating yourself traveling to the race or working at your office desk or something like that. So that's when hydration starts. Race morning, I usually shut it off about an hour or so before the race. If I'm going to the bathroom very frequently, then that's a good sign that you're pretty hydrated usually. Going into the race, though, the general plan is that, and this is general because it does depend on the weather, but for most people, you're going to probably need at least 2 to 3 cups of fluid per hour. And so that's, 16 ounces. Some people carry a handheld. This is an 18-ounce Nathan handheld fluid. They'll have to refill it at the aid stations. But that's really general numbers there. 2 cups being 16 ounces to 32 ounces, which is, roughly about half a liter to a liter. And that's going to change depending on the weather. Now, you're going to want to look up what the race is serving at the aid stations. A lot of aid stations will have cups of water. Like I mentioned in my other marathon video, you want to pinch the cup of water from the top and create a spout that you could sip out of so you don't spill it all over your face. Usually the small paper cups are pretty small, so maybe you're only getting in 6 or 8 ounces every 5K or every 3 or 4 miles or wherever the aid stations are. Look up what type of electrolyte drink the race has. Sometimes they have a sports drink that has carbohydrates and sugars and calories in it. Sometimes it's just a plain electrolyte drink that's not very caloric heavy, but it is heavy with sodium, potassium, magnesium electrolytes. So look up, try to experiment in training with what they have. You could buy these products from specialty run stores or online usually. What I use is, and this is a sponsor plug, I'm sponsored by them, Electroride from myspringenergy.com, enter code SAGE for a discount. This is a really refreshing type of drink. I mix this with water in an 18-ounce bottle. It's roughly half a liter. Really good concentration there. So you don't want to be just drinking pure water. You usually also don't want to just be drinking their pure sports drink. It might be too sugary. It might be too, some people be popping salt tabs and all that. You could overdo it with the sodium intake. You don't really need a whole lot, but you do need some electrolytes, is what I'm saying. And the other thing to consider with your hydration needs, so we're looking at that, 2 to 3 cups per hour, 16 to 24 ounces per hour. I think maybe I said 32 ounces before. That might be the case if it's really hot and humid and you're a bigger person. It's close to a liter, which is about 33 ounces. That would be quite a bit. But if you could handle it and you're dumping water on your head, that's usually a good strategy. It's hot and humid. Is how many calories you're also taking in. Now, a lot of people take some sort of gel, or I call these energy packets. My Spring Energy sponsor plug. You can also get that at what I mentioned, the discount code SAGE. But this is a good example of a carbohydrate source, natural basmati rice fruit. It's got a little caffeine in it even. And you could just squeeze this down. You could carry these in your pockets along with sometimes in your bottle even during the race. You could squeeze it down. You want to be consuming these or grabbing something from the aid stations. Usually marathons, big city marathons in the US at least, they only have a couple aid stations with some sort of real energy packets or something like that, and you're kind of up to what they have. So it's whatever sponsors the race. So probably want to bring your own. That's what I do, or actually I take them to my bottles sometimes. But if you're taking these in on a regular schedule, you're less likely to run into the wall. And how often you take this, again, these are generally on average close to about 100 calories per hour, mostly carbohydrate source. This one's really nice because it's smooth on my stomach, doesn't cause a really big glycemic load index spike, insulin spike, because it is natural basmati rice and fruit. Roughly 100 calories. You could take one every 10K or every 6 miles. That's usually what I would do. So I'm taking one of these at 6 miles. I'm taking one at 12 miles just before halfway. Taking one at 18 miles. Then I'm 3 in. Then I'm taking one more maybe at mile 22 about to get me that last extra 4 miles to the finish, 4.2 miles. But maybe I'd carry 5 in case I feel low on energy. So I got 4 or 5 of these. If you're a smaller person, you could probably get away with less, maybe only 2 or 3. And if you're drinking a really heavy, carbohydrate rich, really sugary type of sports drink also, you won't need to take as many of these. You could get by. When I did my first couple of marathons a long time ago, actually, I was just trying to drink all my calories. And, your hydration needs will change depending on the weather and your personal experience with what your stomach could handle. So it's a matter of minimizing stomach cramping and stomach distress with optimizing hydration and fueling, mainly carbohydrate fueling, and trying to get that balance. But again, practice these products in your long runs in training. And again, check out our marathon training playlist. I have extensive training talks on how to do that. Practice with these products or with your own products in training during marathon or 20-mile long runs and things like that, 32-kilometer long runs, to see what works for you. But those are rough numbers for a rough schedule. Again, taking the My Spring Energy every 6 miles or 10 kilometers, maybe you take it every 5 miles or 8 kilometers, and hydrating with 2 to 3 cups of fluids. Some of it, and the final note is you generally want to take in regular water when you're taking this sort of carbohydrate type of energy packet. It absorbs better, washes down better. This already has some nutrients in it. So just absorb it with plain water. But then, maybe 20, 30 minutes later, in between taking these, you're taking in your electrolyte fluid, something like that. So you're constantly taking in fluid or calories on a schedule, stuff like that. But thanks so much for all your support on here, guys. Thanks so much for watching these types of videos. Again, I want to do more training talks for you guys specifically. So comment below with topics that you'd like to hear about. Check out my playlists. I've been doing these videos for over 6 years, like I said. So feel free to vote up comments and give me some feedback. But thanks so much for all your support, guys. Thanks for all the Patreon supporters, for your generosity. I'll put the link to my Patreon down below in the description, as well as where you can find me on social media. Be sure to subscribe if you like these types of videos. Give it a like, thumbs up, share it on social media, and check out our training plans website. We sell training plans 5K to 10K, half marathon, ultra marathons, and beyond. You can check it out there, sagerunning.com. Thanks so much, and stay tuned for more Sage Running training videos.